Hi folks, how are you doing? This is Mr. Young here. Just going to give you a wee video lesson on some of the things that are coming up in Revision Book 2. So today, just going to go through algebra and also explain some patterns with you as well. Okay, so you need Revision Book 2 and make sure you do this week. This is the 5-minute edition. So time yourself. How many can you do in 5 minutes? I'm sure many of you will be under 5 minutes by now. And read this carefully. Okay, so this is algebra. And it says here, algebra is simply using a letter instead of a number. And there's a couple of rules here. There are some rules here which are really useful in solving algebra problems, whether they're takeaway, adding, multiplying or divide. But also just remember, test it with inverse as well. So 6 plus 4 is 10. So 10 take away 4 is 6. So just test it out that way. And the rule here is that if it's normally, for most of these, if it's taking away or adding, all you do is take the small amount away from the larger amount, and that will tell you what the missing amount is. So the smaller amount here is 7. So if we just take that away from 13, we get 6. So 13 take away 6 is 7. So A is 6. Okay? And that's the way that we work it out. Here, 5 plus A is 16. So what is A? It's a bit like a missing gap question as well. So remember, if it's taking away and adding, just take the small number from the big one. There are some exceptions to that, which I'll go over later, but also just remember to use inverse. For multiplying and dividing, the easiest way, yes, you can use inverse to help you do this. So 20 divided by A is 5. So what is A? Now you could say, well, 5 times A is 20. That would be inverse going backwards. So you know it's going to be 4. Or another way of helping you out, you just divide the larger amount by the smaller amount, and that will tell you what the missing amount is. So 20 divided by 5 is 4. Divide the larger number by the small one, 18 divided by 6 is 3. So that's one way of doing it, or inverse. Okay. Right, next one. Something else we'll be doing today. Finally, this has come up in your 10-minute maths books already, so you should be okay with this. So a quarter of A is 6. Well, if 1/4 is 6, then it's going to be 4 times 6. Okay? Then there's an extension question here as well. So have a look at this and read this extremely carefully. Okay? Right, okay, so starting on to the next one, I'll do a few, just like we do in Transfer Club, I'll do a few of these examples with you, and then the rest you can do by yourself. So the first 4 questions, I'll give you a few tips, then you do them at home and do these ones by yourself at home as well. So let's do algebra first. So remember, algebra is just using a letter instead of a number. So for this one, we're on page 8, and the question is, what are the values of A and B in the calculations below? And write your answer in the space provided. So 473 take away A equals 294. So what is A? And the best way, if we go back to our top tip, it just says, take the small number away from the big one, basically. Okay, so let's do 473 take away 294, and that is how you find A. So 473 take away 294. Okay, so once you do that correctly, you have then found A. So what's the value of B? 72 divided by B equals 8. Well, you could do 8 times what is 72, or you could go back to your tip here where it says divide the larger amount by the smaller amount. So you could do 72 divided by 8, or you could do 8 times B equals 72. That's the other way of working that one out. So that's the first one. I'll let you work those out at home. Okay. Next, so question 2. Look at the comments look at the three statements below. So x plus 13 equals 24. Y times 2 equals 28. Z times 5 equals 12. So you have to work out, the question is, which letter has the smallest value? So I would work all these out first, then put the answers here, and then you can figure out, then you tick which one has the smallest value. So for this one, x plus 13 equals 24. So can you remember how to do that? So just follow the rules, follow the rules. Y times 2 equals 28. So 28 divided by 2 would be, and then write the answer there. Now this one is a bit of a weird one because it doesn't actually follow that little rule, take the small number from the big one. So if I do take the small number from the big one, I get 12 take away 5 is 7. Z, 7 take away 5, oh, wait a minute, 7 take away 5 is not 12. So what you have to do here, just test it and use your common sense. Use inverse for this one. Something is Z, take away 5 equals 12. So 12 add 5 will give you Z. So 12 add 5 equals Z. And I think you can work those out there, okay? So then you work out which one is the smallest and then tick it there. Now, next one. Write the correct number in each of the boxes below. So this one is slightly different. If x equals 5, so that would be 5. Y equals 4. What's x plus y? It's just 5 add 4. It's not that difficult, that one. And z equals 3. Now, if you remember carefully, when there's a little 2 up there, what that means is you multiplied the number by itself. So that actually means 3 times 3. And that's called a square number. If you remember, square numbers are where you take a number and you multiply it by itself. And if you arrange those answers into dots, they actually make a square. So we'll start at 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. There's your square. 3 times 3 is 9. And there's your square, okay? And that's why they're called square numbers. So when you see that there, that just means multiplied by itself. It'll be a square number. Use the information in the first statement below to complete the other statement. Write your answer in the space below. So a quarter of D is 6. Well, if 1/4 is 6, 2/4 will be 12, 3/4 will be 18, and 4/4 will be 24. That's how you work that one out. But then there's a second part. So once you've worked out D, you have to do 50% or half of D and then write the answer in there. And that is how we do algebra. And this is how most of the questions which have algebra will come up in the transfer test. The second page is the same type of thing. Just follow the rules. A little bit harder because there's some decimals here. Okay, a little bit harder. But just use the same rules. Inverse, and then the rules that we've already discussed. Okay. Moving on to patterns. Now, don't be fooled by some patterns. So as with all things, look at the gaps. Is there a pattern in the numbers? Is the pattern in the gaps between the numbers? So these are something called triangular numbers. Now, square numbers can be arranged in a square. Triangular numbers can be arranged in a triangle. So you've got 1, 3, 6. Notice there's a layer going on the bottom every time. 6, 10. And look at the gaps. +2, +3, +4. What will the next gap be? Be +5. So the next triangular number, you wouldn't even have to draw it out. It's 15. The next gap would be +6. So you don't have to draw it out. 21. And triangular numbers keep on going like that. So have a read of that carefully, please. Okay, on page 11, the first one. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is this triangular numbers? No, that is being sent to trick you. So look at the sequence of 3 patterns below. In each pattern, small triangles are used to make bigger triangles, but these are not triangular numbers. So if we have a look here, pattern 1 has 1 triangle. Pattern 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, has 4 triangles. Pattern 3 has 9 triangles. Now what this is, it's just trying to trick you. These are square numbers. So here's the table to help us. Let's do pattern 4 and pattern 5 together, and you'll see what the pattern is now. So what's 1 times 1? Well, it's 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3, 9. 4 times 4, 16. 5 times 5, 25. So it's square numbers every time. So in pattern 6, it'll be 6 times 6. In pattern 7, 7 times 7. So although these are arranged in triangles, they are not those triangular numbers. Sometimes these questions will try and trick you. The next one. Now you might recognise this. These are triangular numbers. So I'll just write up here. So I'll say this question is about triangular numbers. Triangular numbers. So remember, the gap increases by 1 each time. So we've got shape 1 has 1 square, shape 2 has 3 squares, shape 3 has 6 squares. Remember, it's plus 2, plus 3. Okay? How many squares are there in shape 7? Now what I would do now is I would write out all the triangular numbers. But I'll maybe do them like this. So shape 1, shape 2, shape 3. We'll just say S1 for speed. So we'll just draw a little table down the side here. S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, S6, S7. We now need to go up to S7. And then it says how many squares will there be in shape 9. So we'll go down to 9, shape and then shape 9. And then just draw a quick line. Okay, I'm doing this as quick as I can because in the transfer test, this is the quickest way to do it. Okay, and then draw some lines across like this for our little table. Okay, then we've got our triangular numbers here. So let's just put them in here. So shape 1 has 1 squares, then 3, and then 6. And the gap increases by 1 each time. So plus 4 would be 10. Plus 5 is 15. Then it would be plus 6 is 21. Then plus 7 is 28. Then plus 8 is 36. Then plus 9 would be 45. So that is actually the first 9 triangular numbers, and they go on forever. Okay, just hold that a little bit closer. Can you see? So the questions are how many... Now, once you've done this, you can now answer all these questions. How many squares are there in shape 7? There we go. Then you can also answer these ones. Look at the numbers in the first 3 shapes. The number of tiles in each shape is called a triangular number. The first 3 try, and then it takes you through there. And then it says 2 of these numbers are triangular numbers, and you tick which ones. Now you've done this, you can answer that question as well. And this question too. So the trick to triangular number pattern questions is to draw out a table. Last couple of things, folks. Okay, on page 13, this is another one where we'll need to draw out a table. So it says the series of patterns is made using a mixture of white and shaded tiles. Pattern 1 contains 4 tiles. It has 2 white and 2 shaded tiles. Now, what I would do here is make a table again. Then you'll be able to answer all these questions fairly well. So to draw a table, it might be a bit tight. I can maybe do it on here. Tell you what, I'll do it at the bottom here. So our little table, a bit like the other one from the other question. We'll say pattern, so we'll take P. So we'll go P1, P2, no, not school classes, just pattern. P is for pattern. P3, P4, P5, P6, P7, P8, P9. And that should be enough, but we'll see. And then just draw a little line down there. Now, this one needs to be a bit bigger. Okay, and at the top, we're gonna have, see here it says there's white tiles and shaded tiles. So we'll have a W for white tiles and an S for shaded tiles. And P1, let's do this together. So P1 has how many white tiles? 2. And how many shaded tiles? 2. So it has 2 white and 2 shaded. Pattern 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4 white and 3 shaded. So 4 for W white and 3 shaded. Pattern 3 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 white and 4 shaded. So 6 white and 4 shaded. Now, we don't need to draw out this pattern. That will take you too long. So we want to teach you the quickest way of doing it. And I think that this is the quickest way because you don't need to draw this pattern out. You could, but it would take you a long time. So now, I think we can see a pattern here, 2, 4, 6. So how many white tiles will there be in pattern 4? It's going up in 2s. So it's going to be 8, 10, 12, and so on and so forth. Shaded tiles, it's going up and adding 1 each time. So that'll be 5, 6, 7. Now once you've completed this, you should be able to answer some of these questions. Let's do this one together. If this series of patterns is continued, what is the total number of tiles in pattern 4? Total number including white and shaded. Now if I just go down to my table, well I've done pattern 4, it's 8 plus 5. Another pattern in the same series has 9 shaded tiles. Well, you would need to just continue that table on to answer that question. Look at pattern 3. What percentage is shaded? Well, there's pattern 3. There's 4 are shaded. And how many squares make up the whole thing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 4 out of 10. And 4/10 equals what as a percentage? Well, 1/10 equals 10%. So I'm sure you can work out the rest. Okay. Now you'll have to carry on the table to answer that question, but this is the key. It's getting these sort of questions right. Draw out a table. And the last one, doing really well, folks. Thank you for listening. Is page 14. Let's see what this pattern looks like. Look at the sequence of 3 patterns below. Each pattern is made up of shaded and unshaded squares. For example, pattern 3 has 9 shaded squares and 12 unshaded squares. Let's see if there's any triangular number patterns or square number patterns, or if there's any pattern that we can kind of recognize. Okay, so pattern 1. Sometimes it will give you a table, so you won't need to draw out one. You just continue it, but sometimes you do. So what's happening here? Well, I've got pattern 1 has 4 white, pattern 2 has 8 white, pattern 3 has 12 white. Can you see what the pattern here is? This is actually a times 4 question. So the rule here is for the white, 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 4 is 12. So the 4th pattern would be 4 times 4 and would have that many unshaded squares. That's how you work that one out. So it's actually a times 4 pattern for the unshaded squares. And then answer that question there. And then lastly, how many shaded squares are there in pattern 7? Write your answer in the space below. So shaded squares. So, oh, sorry, I meant unshaded there. That's the unshaded ones, the white ones. So shaded squares. Let's have a look at this table here. So 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. Now, this is a square number pattern. Square number pattern. Because when you go back and look at the picture, it's squares, just like we spoke about a few minutes ago. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. So how many shaded squares are there in pattern 7? That will just be 7 times 7. And that's how you work that out. Now you could draw that out, but it would take you a very, very long time. So this is why using tables and trying to see patterns, is it a multiplying pattern like times 4, is it triangular numbers or square numbers? So folks, that is the tutorial for today. So go back and record that any way that you wish. You might need to flip this because I've had to do it landscape so I can fit in the paper, but good luck. And if you get really, really stuck, you can ask me or Miss Wilson on Google Classroom. Okay, thanks very much, folks. Bye-bye. Good luck.